Shore. Today, we're going to be going over our Week 4 power rankings for the 2025 NFL season. Without further ado, let's get into these power rankings. So the first tier we have is the Saints at 32, the Giants at 31, the Titans at 30, the Dolphins at 29, and the Jets at 28. Saints at 32, they didn't really look good against the Seahawks at all. I know they've been competitive in their first two games, but it just wasn't very impressive. I know Seattle's a good team, but I just wasn't very impressed. Giants at 31. Russell Wilson and them looked horrible against the Chiefs. Cam Skattebo was the only player on offense, at least, that, did anything. We'll see what Jackson Dart can do against Chargers in week 4. Titans at 30. They lost to a pretty good Colts team. Don't really feel like a need to move them down. I feel like they're pretty okay there at 30. And then the Dolphins and Jets, who actually play each other on Monday night, they're just two of the other 0-3 teams, which these teams have in common. And I feel like they just both haven't looked that great. Jets almost beat the Bucs. I'll give them that. They almost beat the Bucs, but I'm just not too high on the Jets or the Dolphins, and I feel like they're 0-3 for a reason. Next here we have the Browns at 27, Patriots at 26, Raiders at 25, and the Texans at 24. Browns get a big win against the Packers. Game-winning field goal. The defense for Cleveland has been great this season. I know they let the Ravens score a lot of points, but it is Baltimore, and that game was out of hand. But overall, the Browns defense has been great. Myles Garrett's been great. They get a win against a really good Packers team. Now, I don't want to put the Browns all of a sudden super high because they beat the Packers, but I will put them above the bottom 5 0-3 teams because they did get a win against a good Packers team. Patriots and Raiders continue to be right next to each other because they've played very similar, and they played a very close game with the Raiders winning, which is why I still have the Raiders one tier above them. Patriots just really beat themselves in that Steelers game. The 5 turnovers. They turned the ball over twice when they were about to score. Raiders, they went against the Commanders team, but that Commanders team didn't have Jaden Daniels, and they got 40 put on them. Geno Smith had a good game. Trey Tucker had a great game, but I think some of that was garbage time. So the Raiders are just okay, honestly. And the Texans at 24, really disappointing. Now, I know they're 0-3, and I have them above 3 teams that have won a game, but they've been competitive against a good Bucs team, competitive against a solid Jags team, and competitive against a good Rams team. So I don't want to put them too low, but I am getting very concerned, and now they play the Titans. If they lose to the Titans, they will move far down this list. But I'm still holding faith because the defense played great. I still do think Stroud can turn it around. Next here we have it's a big one here. We have the Falcons at 23, the Panthers at 22, Cardinals at 21, the Bengals at 20, the Cowboys at 19, the Bears at 18, and the Jags at 17. Falcons at 23 and Panthers at 22. We can kind of talk about these teams because they played each other. 30-0 win by the Panthers is not what I expected at all. They beat them in every facet of the game, special teams, offense, defense. And it just wasn't a good game from the Falcons at all. And Panthers, on the Panthers side, they get a big win, division win, first win of the season. And in a dominating performance, I think it was such a dominating win that they deserve to be ahead of the Falcons in the power rankings. Kind of why the Falcons fell so far down. Cardinals at 21, similar to the Titans, they haven't really done anything against what I expect of them last week. They definitely could have played a little better against the Niners. They could have easily won that game against the Niners. But I don't think, not only did they beat the Panthers, so I want to have them above the Panthers, but I just don't think they did enough to really move in the rankings in my mind. Bengals at 20 didn't look good at all against the Vikings, who in the first 2 weeks I wasn't that impressed with the Vikings. They barely beat a Bears team, and then they don't do anything against the Falcons. So I wasn't too impressed with the Vikings, and then the Bengals go ahead and get blown out by Carson Wentz and the Vikings. And I think we're seeing the effects of Joe Burrow's injury, and the Bengals could continue to slide down these rankings. Cowboys at 19. I really thought they could beat the Bears in that game. I really thought they could at least give the Bears a competitive game, if anything, but it was far from that. Now they're missing CeeDee Lamb. The Dallas' defense is just not good. And then again, speaking of the Bears at 18, who beat them, Caleb Williams played great. I'll give him that, but is it more of Dallas' defense? Because Russell Wilson had a great game against them, that did nothing against the Chiefs. And then here's Caleb Williams now having a great game against the Cowboys. So we'll have to see. But I was really impressed with the Bears' offense. But I was also impressed with the Bears' defense because, again, the Cowboys' defense could just be bad, and that's why the Bears' offense played well. But the Cowboys' offense has been playing well, so I was really impressed with what the Bears' defense was able to do. And speaking of defenses, the Jags' defense, which was not very good last year, has been great to start the season. I know they played the Panthers, they played the Texans, and I'm blanking on the second team they played. But their defense has been very good. I've been very impressed with the Jags' defense. And I think out of all these, like, Cardinals, Bengals, Cowboys, Bears, and Jags, I'm taking the Jags out of all those teams just based off the first 3 weeks. Next year, we have the Steelers at 16. We have the Vikings at 15. The Seahawks at 14. The Chiefs at 13. And the Broncos at 12. Steelers at 16. I know they beat the Patriots. So it's like, why'd they fall down 2 spots for beating the Patriots? First of all, the Patriots could have easily won that game. The Steelers did nothing. The Steelers were trying to lose that game, and so were the Patriots. The Patriots just tried harder to lose than the Steelers did. But also, I've been more impressed. Also, the Vikings played really well, hence why they got above them. And I couldn't put them above the Seahawks. They lost to the Seahawks not too long ago. So that's why the Steelers fell down, even though they won. Again, Vikings, very good, impressive win against the Bengals. Now, does this bode well with J.J. McCarthy? I don't think it matters right now because Carson Wentz didn't really have to do anything. I bet McCarthy would have won that game too. So we have to see if Carson Wentz can, win a game for the Vikings, then maybe we have to have questions about McCarthy. But right now, I think we still have to wait and see. But again, the defense played great. Isaiah Rodgers, great game. Seahawks at 14. Again, a team that won in dominating fashion and goes down in the rankings. It's just because teams like the Colts and the Lions got big bumps in the rankings, hence why a team like Seattle fell down. Same thing with Kansas City and Denver. Kansas City with a big win against the Giants, but they honestly didn't look that impressive. The defense played well, but that could have been just how bad the Giants' offense played. And the Chiefs' offense has continued to struggle due to Mahomes maybe not being the same, Kelsey not being the same, and some of the injuries they've had on offense. And then the Broncos at 12, they probably should have won that game against the Chargers. I mean, they played solid, but Bo Nix hasn't been the most impressive quarterback. I've been a little underwhelmed with Bo Nix. The Broncos' defense hasn't been as great as maybe I think they could be as well. So they're still a good team. They're still, I think, going to be a good team for the season. But I'm just a little skeptical about them right now. Next here we have the Niners at 11, the Colts at 10, the Rams at 9, the Ravens at 8, the Commanders at 7, and the Lions at 6. Niners at 11, they're 3-0. I had to give them their respect. So that's why they moved over the Broncos. They're doing it with Mac Jones. I know they beat the Cardinals, Saints, and Seahawks as their 3 teams they've beaten. But their defense has played great. We'll see how they do without Nick Bosa now, which is a huge injury. But Purdy might be coming back soon. McCaffrey's been pretty decent. Ricky Pearsall's been great for them. And if they can get Kittle back soon, I don't know when Kittle's supposed to come back, but despite the injuries, they've played great so far. They're 3-0. I had to give them their respect there. Colts at number 10. Seems low, potentially, for a team that's been very dominant offensively and defensively. But when you look at the teams they played the Broncos, who are a good team, but not as good as maybe we thought they could be. And they've beaten the Titans, and they've beaten the Dolphins. So yes, they've been very good throughout the first 3 weeks. And I am a believer in the Colts. I'm a believer in Daniel Jones. But I want to temper my expectations just a little bit and put them at 10. Just because I'd rather have teams like the Rams, Ravens, Commanders, and Lions over the Colts right now. And I'm pretty sure the Colts played the Rams this week. So we'll get a real test between the Colts and the Rams this week. So that should be a good game. Rams at 9. Disappointing loss to the Eagles. They had that game from the very beginning. They were in control. They were up, 26-7, and they end up losing that game. I don't want to push them too far because the Eagles are one of the best teams in the league, and they looked very good through the first 2-3 quarters. But definitely a disappointing loss for the Rams. Ravens at 8. I know 5 spots seems pretty aggressive for losing to the Lions, but I didn't want to put them below the Commanders, who won. I didn't want to put them above the Commanders, who won. Didn't want to put them above the Lions, who obviously beat them. And then we'll get to the Packers in a minute, as they're in the next tier. I couldn't put the Ravens over the Packers because that means the Packers would then be below the Lions. So yes, it seems aggressive for a Ravens team that's still very good. Lamar's still one of the best quarterbacks, obviously, and he played great in that loss. It's just that O-line has a little bit of concerns for me, and that defense is a little bit of a concern for me. As I mentioned before, Commanders at 7. You get a good win against a Raiders team with your backup quarterback. I don't think it really deserves them going down any spots or going up any spots. It was just a do-your-job type of win. They just did what they needed to do. Lions at 6. Back-to-back very impressive wins. You blow out the Bears at home in week 2, and then you beat the Ravens on Monday night in Baltimore. Very impressive win. The Lions look very bad against the Packers, but they have rebounded very well in these last 2 weeks to climb right back up into that top 10, nearly top 5 teams. And those final top 5 teams, we have the Packers at 5, the Bucs at 4, the Chargers at 3, the Eagles at 2, and the Bills at 1. Packers at 5. I know they lost to the Browns, but I didn't want to move them down too much because it's just one game. They just had an off game. The Browns played very well. I still think the Packers are one of the best teams in the league. I wouldn't put too much stock into that loss to the Browns. Bucs at 4, another team that seems a little high, considering that the teams they've beaten have like 1 win total. However, I feel like you can't. Part of it is putting them ahead of a Packers team who lost to the Browns, and then putting them over teams like the Lions, Commanders, and Ravens. Lions played bad against the Packers. Commanders played bad against the Packers. And then the Ravens played bad against the Lions. Oops, sorry about that. So that's why the Bucs are at 4. We'll see what they do against the Eagles, who are at 2. Chargers at 3 continue to look very impressive. They've beaten the Chiefs, they've beaten the Broncos, and they've beaten the Raiders, all division wins. Herbert continues to play great. Defense continues to play great. And then the Eagles and Bills, I kept them at 1 and 2. I know the Eagles had a big comeback against a really good Rams team, whereas the Bills beat the Dolphins, but the Eagles could have easily just lost that game. Like, they didn't look good at the beginning of the game. So I kept them at 2, Bills at 1, but they're very interchangeable, 1A, 1B in my opinion. So I had to give one team number 1, and I went with the Bills. But that will conclude our power rankings for week 4. Let me know in the comment section what you agree with, disagree with. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.